Hello, my beautiful Taurus clan, and welcome to May 2020. Happy birthday, beautiful beings, for those of you born in May, and happy birthday to the April Tauruses as well. We're in your season. We're in a really powerful time of transformation, and I feel like the Sun and Uranus both working in Taurus is always that's going to be some amplified energy right there for all of us in an accelerated pace. Despite Taurus's reputation for being the slow movers, the impact that a Taurus makes as they move through the world and as they do their work is huge. So let's talk about this month because it is revolutionary and it is a perspective shifting month. And I think especially for you Tauruses, the thing that came up for me when I noticed your energy and when I felt through it was that this month is going to challenge the familiar way you look at things. And it's going to ask you to look at it sideways, upside down, or completely stop looking at this one thing and notice this other detail or this other aspect of the puzzle of life, of the mystery of life in a way that you never have before. Very much like the Sherlock Holmes experience of the world, where it's not about looking at how this person's acting nervous. It's about looking at that, item on the desk. I don't know. For example, one thing I was thinking about is one familiar thing for me that I don't always question is how I kind of still, even years after finishing school, think about time in terms of semesters and completion of schoolwork at this time or that time, of work weeks. And how that's a familiar pattern, right? It's something that, even if I'm not consciously doing it, I'm kind of looking for the contours of that in my daily, weekly life a little bit, and using that to be my safety equipment in the vastness of the universe, right? But it's not always serving me. It's just familiar, but it doesn't necessarily give me greater joy in life or help me to be more productive or more in tune. In fact, it often blinds me to an experience that maybe I want to be having. And this month is really working in that way. That's just an example, but it could be anything for you where there's this urging for you not to look at things in the familiar way, not to tell the same story. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the North Node is moving into Gemini. It's moving into your neighbor. It's moving into your second house. And as the North Node works through Gemini for the next year and a half, the way we think about things, the way we logically plan, the way we string together ideas, the way we speak to ourselves, the way we use our words is going to be going through a huge reinvention. Not only that, but the South Node in Sagittarius over there is going to be asking us to reformulate the basic premise upon which we build our worldview. So you can imagine we're evolving the way we think with these Nord shift. Oh my God, I can't speak. North Node shifts. The irony of trying to say that while I'm talking about the fact that the use of words is important is not beyond me. Not only that, Venus is going retrograde in Gemini as well. Your ruling planet is going retrograde. She goes retrograde about every year and a half. We're starting big, 10 of Swords, okay. Yeah, that's the death of one way of seeing things, absolutely. Your ruling planet, she goes retrograde about every year and a half, and it is symbolic, it is powerful, it is big. This is also happening in Gemini, in your neighbor, in your second house of love and value. Huge revolution going on here with how you love yourself, how you love on yourself in what you have around you, how you love on yourself with your possessions, with your close friendships. This is a big one. And I am a really big fan of this retrograde, even though it's a little intimidating because it's a big spiritual one. But I am going to go deep on Patreon about this because I actually have a really strong opinion about Venus and her energy, Venusian energy, and it's not shallow. Often she gets kind of slated as all about the beautiful, pretty, nice things, and I think that's a cultural legacy about femininity that we've put a lens on in our current times. So We're going to be doing some work with her over on my Patreon every single week, all the way through that retrograde. I'm going to be offering support. So I'd love to see you over there. $5 gets you the whole deal. So it's a really great way to get more resources without having to invest a ton of time and energy and money, right? But it's going to be so much fun. We're going to have a beautiful time. So Venus retrograde is going to be taking us to some spiritual places. And she does this every single time. She will help us to revolutionize the way we see and think and feel. So that begins on the 13th. We also have a full moon in Scorpio. 7th house, baby. Your opposite sign. Page of Wands. That is going to be illuminating how you relate to others, and giving you a lot of clarity and closure on any patterns, any emotional patterns that maybe have come up around relationship over the last year. You know, you only get one full moon every year opposing you, and so it's normally a great culminator when it comes to our emotional evolution to have that oppositional moon. And as we move through, you know, we're moving through all this energy highlighting you, Taurus, moving through your sign, and then we get to the end of the month and we're in Gemini season. Now, along with all of that, we have the outer planets going retrograde. Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn are all going to be retrograde until September, October. So we're also beginning, 2 cards going to come out, 8 of Cups, Knight of Cups. We're also going to be starting to get into the inside out logic of the universe, which means everything coming from the inside and connecting from that point rather than getting all the infusion from external sources. So this is an important time to get back in tune with the way we create, the way we connect. It's a very healing time and a very helpful, supportive time in many ways. Knight of Pentacles. Getting these knights one after the other, right? Page of Pentacles. All right. Pages and knights galore. All right. Young masculine energy everywhere in this reading. I'm just saying. King of Pentacles. Okay. Mature masculine energy. But once again, this is a month of seeing and perceiving things in new ways. And I think that it's a skill set that we develop, because how do you see something that you haven't seen before, but even though it's there, right? How do you do that? You know, where do you start? I would say one of the things that I do in order to do that is meditation helps a lot. And I also I say, okay, you know I am not seeing a piece of this puzzle. Help me to see that, right? I'm open to seeing what it is that I need to see or understand. And the Chariot, ooh, very nice. Okay. Got all our cards out here so we can have a nice discussion about all this Pentacles energy that's showing up for you, which I'm loving. Very stable energy. How do we see differently? How do you invite that in? Well, to some extent, this just organically happens. You know, this is something as we stay open, as we keep our heart open, as we keep exploring, new things like this pop into our lives all the time. I think we sometimes have a bit of a bias toward our present self in that we obviously always knew that this was how it was going to play out, right? But our past selves would disagree and say, I had no idea that I was going to need to see things this way or that I was going to be experiencing it this way, right? And so we're naturally built to be seeing differently all the time, but sometimes that emphasis is really strong. And I would say it's really interesting when I look at these first 4 all together, because the 10 of Swords and the 8 of Cups, these 2 are all about kind of going through the darkness, going through on a nighttime journey, going through the underground, through the unseen, through the process of loss of self, with sitting with old wounds, with shedding a skin, with communing with, it's not darkness so much as it's with communing with the mystery, right? With the unknown, with the uncertain. And then it comes out with this Page of Wands and this Knight of Cups each time, and there's this alternation going on between all 4 of those cards, right? It's like dark, light, it's like day and night. waving through your process this month. And I think that's a really fair thing to say. I think when we're recalibrating our vision and we are changing what we are focusing on and we are shifting our perspective, it isn't just something that we wake up one day and it's done. It's like we go through this modulation, right? We go through this wave frequency that helps us see clearly. You start off with a skin shedding, 100%. This is a transformational card. And it does often come with kind of this letting go of a version of yourself. And while there's a brutality in this energy, and some people like to be a little silly and say this is about being backstabbed and everybody in your life turning on you. It has a very big theme of kind of Caesar in ancient Rome and his murder, definitely. However, the sword suit, it's always to remember, is how we use words, how we use ideas to either imprison or release ourselves. Sword suit is a very challenging one because it takes us back time and again to how we use our thoughts to be prisons or places of freedom. And it's also, by the time you get to Ten of Swords, a place where you release from an old storyline that can no longer serve you. It just cannot. So it has died. There is a big transformation there. It's kind of earth-shattering, right? But it's quickly followed by the Page of Wands, who is an adventurer, is curious. Now maybe somebody shows up in your life that helps you to see this, invigorates your world with that hopeful, playful, buoyant, curious energy. We need those helpers in our lives that help us to see differently and to not feel alone in the exploration. But this also activates your creative voice. It also activates that part of yourself that can just get in there and go for it. And that's really important. And it's actually taking you on this adventure. Eight of Cups energy is the spiritual traveler. And it's the traveler that leaves a table that's no longer serving love, right? To find out what's on the other side of that mountain pass. To find out what happens if you go seeking your own path. Now, there's been a lot of amazing work that's been coming out recently from authors that have to do with reclaiming your path. And not the one that was written for you, right? And Eight of Cups speaks to that completely. I know many of you, I just read it, Untamed by Glennon Doyle is one of those books that really speaks to this. Eight of Cups is about true authenticity in your path. There's a bittersweetness. You cannot stay the same. You cannot stay in the familiar just because it's familiar. This is an invitation to shift gears and see something new. So the groundwork is getting laid here for very different lifestyle choices. Now, then we just get into 4 men in a row: Knight of Cups, Knight of Pentacles, Page of Pentacles, King of Pentacles. It's interesting. They each kind of have their own offering to bring to the table. They do. They really do. I mean, the one thing I will say is that as much as this is a time of seeing things sideways, upside down, or completely differently, right? Opening that lens of perception, this isn't necessarily a time where you're doing that alone. One part of healing is absolutely communing with ourselves, choosing our authentic path. And that is something we can only do alone, right? Nobody else can choose that path for us. We can't look to others to put our foot on it and make it happen. That's something that we do very much alone and isolated. Feels a little lonely, right? But the other part of healing, the other part of growing in life, is allowing others to come in and help us. Now, Knight of Cups is the true romantic. He believes in truth, love, and beauty. He believes in flowers and poetry and the epicness of the story. He brings in that infusion of playful belief. I think that's a really important component that you're needing in those around you at this time. But you also have the very grounded Knight of Pentacles who wants to look at the logistics and say, how are we going to hammer this out? What is that going to look like? How can we feel secure in each step along the way? Now, I have to admit, Tauruses, you do like to have a plan and have a way that you can put your feet on the path. You don't want to just be floating around saying, oh, that sounds nice. How are we going to do this? How are we going to initiate this? This is a great month for this emotional soul evolution that's going on in your creative path and on activating your unique path. Not what has been written for you, not what has been created for you in the calendar of time, but what you are creating that is also activating a seed planting a seed planting process that is represented in these triple pentacles, trifecta of energy here, right? We start with the slowest moving knight, the one that wants to be very thorough, a little resistant to taking action. Then we get into Page of Pentacles. That's where action starts to pick up a little bit. Have you ever noticed, in this deck especially, this guy is ripped. He's going to the gym. He's doing some things. He's taking some actions, right? He's showing up to life. I'm not saying you have to show up to the gym. I'm just saying he's not sitting still. He's got plans. He's making things move. And then King of Pentacles, big time investment, fully showing up. So there's an evolution going on here. Now, this can represent everything getting activated in you, right? More and more powerful, more and more clear on your path. This can also represent those people that help activate that within you and help reflect it back to you and help support you. The important thing with these energies is they are stable. They are consistent. And they show up time and again. Now, this is something to keep in mind. This is what you want around you in this new worldview. Period. Consistency. Done. And that has to do with creative projects. It also has to do with relationships. Now, the final card is Chariot, and that is a love card for sure. This is definitely about union. This is definitely about balance. This is definitely, it's tied to Cancer energy, Cancerian energy, right? The moon and the union of two. Now, we have that full moon in Scorpio, right? The culmination of your emotional evolution when it comes to relationships. When it comes to how you love, how you give love, and how you receive love. There's a big sub-theme, not only with Venus retrograde beginning, but also with this full moon happening right before that. That's illuminating a full circle process here. And that does have to do with partnership and refining that. Now, I'm going to just say this briefly. We're going to get into this much more on Patreon because there's a lot going on with Venus retrograde. Pop culture, pop astrology likes to talk about Venus retrograde and the things that it can bring in. And I will be telling you some of my personal stories about the last 2 Venus retrogrades and what I've done with those over on Patreon. But the pop astrology version of this is that you are either going to get into relationships that teach you a hard lesson, you're going to have exes come back and, tempted to get back into that, and you're going to be in karmic relationships that are hard. Now, that's possible. Depending on what you're wanting to learn at this time about relationship, Venus retrograde is going to give you a 6-week speed course through whatever that is. But for those that want that stability and consistency and that healing and that showing up, the Venus retrograde, it doesn't necessarily bring chaos and devastation. It can bring deeper commitment, it can bring deeper understanding, and it can bring deeper clarity about what you really love and value within yourself. So just keep that in mind, that the big themes I'm seeing here is you need to be authentically yourself on your own path, knowing that it's yours completely. And keep an eye on those personalities that are consistent and loving and committed and clear. And this is your ruling planet too, so this does have to do with your own personal evolution and not just relationships. But like I said, we're going to go a lot deeper. Now, I've written some keywords up for May, and I'm going to pull one for you, see what the final message is that wants to come out. And the message is believe. I love that so much. Believe. I think that is a crucial part of choosing your path. It's not fake it till you make it, but it kind of is. You have to believe that path is there for you, and you have to believe you are allowed to take it. And when I'm thinking about seeing things that you couldn't see before, I think about how in believing we are allowed to see past something like the way that I was talking about seeing the structure of a week or a day or of time. If I allow myself to believe there's another way to see it, I invite in a new way of seeing it. Believing is a very helpful tool in welcoming and facilitating and embracing the mystery of life. And it's a soft way to lean into that without trying to force elated positivity or force grand changes in perspective, right? It starts with that softer, just believing you're allowed. Believing you're allowed to be at peace, believing you're allowed to be in a loving, consistent partnership, believing you're allowed to learn new skills, believing you're allowed to make shifts, believing you're allowed to wish for a peaceful, loving world, believing you're allowed to love yourself and be at peace with who you are and your body and your thoughts and your mind and what you're giving to the world. Now, I want to just like hammer that home, because I think with Uranus and Taurus, there is this kind of pressure on you all. There's a lot of electricity shifting your course from week to week, month to month right now that can feel a little bit like, what do I do with that? And coming back to the softness of belief, I think is such a powerful tool. You are allowed to use this Uranus and Taurus time to feel empowered and at ease. It does not have to constantly be about a battle, unless that's something that you're really desiring. Believe. I love that. Like I said, we're going to go deep on so much of this beautiful energy coming in May, and how much it's going to be shifting. So I'd love to see you over on Patreon. It's all inclusive, one tier, $5, a whole month of beautiful work together every month, every week. We do a ton. So I'd love to see you over there. You can also find me on Instagram at Sarah Verba, and I will be opening up more sessions this summer. In June, July, and on. I just need to get a few logistics in my life worked out so that I know that I can really be present. But I would love to do a one-on-one work with you, open up that creative channel, create the space for you to connect in with your true path. So I will leave my booking link below so that you can keep an eye on my calendar, and I will let you all know when those sessions open, especially on Instagram or here on the channel. You can also find my good Taurus friend Tiffany at PinkLune and her beautiful jewelry. I'm wearing her brass collection right now, and I love it so much. So if you're looking for heartfelt, handmade, thoughtful, crafted jewelry, I would highly recommend you go check out her Etsy shop. I will leave her link in the description box. I will see you all in June, which is wild to think about, and for the Moon Magics. And I hope you all have beautiful birthdays. I love this season so much, and I'm very excited to dive into the beautiful goddess energy of this time. And I will see you in June.